Okay, my presentation should be visible. Please let me know if you can see my screen. Perfect. Okay. Starting with the presentation, Climate Ready YYC is a grant that is administered by the Federation of Calgary Communities, and it is funded by the City of Calgary. So the grant funding is from the City of Calgary, and we, as the Federation of Calgary Communities, are administering the grant. Just a brief overview of the content. So after the land acknowledgement, we will be introducing the Federation of Calgary Communities, and then we will move on to the grants, talk a little bit about climate change and adaptation and mitigation initiatives. And I will be running through the grant application for small grants, and we'll be taking any questions and answers in the end. Sorry. The Federation of Calgary Communities acknowledges Mohkinstsis and the traditional Treaty 7 territory and oral practices of the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprised of the Siksika, the Kainai, and the Piikani First Nations, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, the Stoney Nakoda, including the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Goodstoney First Nation. We acknowledge that this territory is home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, District 5 and 6, within the historical Northwest Métis homeland. So we acknowledge our ancestors and the land that we now call our home. Talking about the Federation of Calgary Communities, I'm pretty sure that all of you know about the Federation of Calgary Communities, but Climate Ready YYC is a unique grant because it is open to everybody, not just our members. So I thought I would share a little bit about the Federation of Calgary Communities and what we do. So we're a nonprofit organization which has around 256 nonprofit organizations as members. Out of the 256 organizations, we have 156 community associations, 86 community-based organizations, 13 resident associations, and 7 rural community association as our members. We work with the communities, we serve the communities, and we are primarily focused on educating, empowering, connecting, and collaborating with the communities. So we have a lot of grant opportunities where we work with communities to implement diverse grants. Climate Ready YYC is one of the examples of such grants. We have Activate YYC that is into placemaking. We have energizing spaces to help our members go more for more energy efficient appliances. We have other grants like action grants. So we have a lot of grants. We also work with planning and also do audits for our member organizations. So moving on to Climate Ready YYC. Climate Ready YYC offers small grants of 500 to 5,000, which are awarded to small groups of community-minded individuals, 3 or more registered or registered organizations to empower climate adaptations and climate actions at grassroots community level. So these grants aim to help communities and vulnerable groups adapt to the impacts of climate change and also mitigate climate change by reducing the greenhouse gases emissions. So this is a special grant, and this initiated past year, but the implementation started this year. So it's 2025, and we have had 2 rounds in the past where we have had like phenomenal projects that have come in, and this is the 3rd round for Climate Ready YYC for this year. So when we talk about climate change, so what does climate change actually mean for Calgary? We're all Calgarians, and we have been facing the impacts of the changing climate. Climate change is basically the change in weather patterns of a certain area over a long period of time. So when we talk about climate change, we're talking about the change in the weather patterns for around 30 years. So we look into the data for 30 years to say that, hey, the climate is changing. Weather changes now and then. Like for instance, weather is simply September 22nd last year, it was very cold, but September 22nd this year might not be that cold. So that is simply weather. Weather changes. However, climate change is a pattern that looks at the longer term of changes in the weather patterns. And when we talk about climate change, so as community, as individuals, what can we do to help climate change or help mitigate the impacts of climate change? So there are two initiatives that we can engage in, that is mitigation and adaptation. Mitigation is basically cutting climate change in its source. Climate change is caused due to the emission of greenhouse gases. So mitigation simply refers to reducing the greenhouse gases emission. So that could be either by changing our behaviors or changing the way we do things, right? And adaptation is basically, so the climate is changing. Even if we stop all the emissions today, the climate will keep on changing because of the emissions that has already happened in the past. So in order to like adapt to the changes that have already happened and the impacts that the change has brought, it is important to adapt to the changing climate. If we look at the primary hazards for Calgary, there are 8 prime hazards that stand out. They are extreme heat, wildfire smoke, drought, river flooding, heavy rainfall, winter storms, severe storms, like we have had a lot of hail lately, and shifting seasons. So these are the prime hazards. And when we talk about adaptation, we're primarily focusing on actions that would help us adapt to the impacts of these hazards that are caused due to the changing climate. So it could be adapting to extreme heat, adapting to wildfire smoke, or adapting to drought by using like rainwater harvesting, or wildfire smoke by using HEPA filters, opening indoor spaces so that people can carry on with their daily life inside the building when there is a lot of wildfire smoke outside. And extreme heat could be adding on the shade structure, or using more sunscreen, or having those rechargeable fans that you can take to places. So those are some examples of adaptation. So this is an art developed by the city of Calgary. And when we look closely at we see a lot of adaptation actions that have been happening. So we see that people are having roof gardens, which would help reduce the temperature of the building, having these misting stations that would help adapt from the extreme heat, use of heat reflective paints that would help to reduce the temperature within the building, use sunshade devices, use of resource libraries. Like for instance, there is a concept of libraries, free books everywhere, right? So when we think about climate adaptation, these resource libraries could be equipped with, like, for instance, sunscreen in terms of adapting to heat, or they could have like winter items like toques or mittens that would help adapt to the extreme winters, right? So that could be a very reliable resource library in the communities. So that could be anything like having the water stations installed, or having native plants and pollinator gardens in your community garden. So there are several adaptation actions that can be taken. These are further examples. So in our website, we also have an inspiration toolkit, which has a lot of cards with information as to what can be done as an adaptation action for your community that would be suitable and within the scope of this grant. So these are basically for ideas, not to influence your thoughts, but just to feed a few like innovative ideas that could be developed into a project. So you could see like opening up community space when there is extreme weather events. It could be heat. And if your community space has a good AC or has a good fan, then opening up these places for community members. Maybe unhoused people can have shelter in these places. So thinking about these projects could be an option for climate adaptation. Moving on to mitigation. So mitigation is basically cutting emissions. So that could be by using like transit systems so that we minimize the use of our personal individual vehicles, or it could be like using alternative mode of transportation, right? Instead of having a car, taking a car to your work, you could maybe bike or go for e-scooters or maybe walk if it is in a walkable distance. So these are various examples of mitigation measures for climate change and mitigation actions that can be led by the community. So maybe share information on electric vehicles and how clean sources of energy are important to help mitigate climate change. Or it could be running repair workshops or repair cafes in your community, or having these solar panels installed in your community association, or going for composting if you already have a community garden. So these could be some of the examples of mitigation efforts that you could run as a community or individual living in your community. So moving on from the ideas for climate adaptation and mitigation. Here are some of the eligibility criteria for Climate Ready YYC. So the grant is limited within the physical boundaries of the city of Calgary. Hence, since it is funded by the city of Calgary, the projects have to be within the limits of city of Calgary. Small grants are open for application from community groups, so you don't have to be an official organization, registered organization to apply for this grant. If you are a member in your community, or if you are an individual from the community, and if you have 3 or more members in your group from your community, but living in different households, then you can apply for this grant. Or if you're a registered organization, could be nonprofits, community associations, community organizations, then you're free to apply for this grant and do some actionable climate actions in your community. Talking about the timeline for the grant, as you know, the proposals call for applications opened on September 2nd. The deadline for submission is October 31st, and the results would be announced early December. So we would take a month to evaluate all the applications that come in, and the results will be announced early December this year. The projects need to be completed by September 15, 2026. The reason we put this is because so that it's easier for you to plan the scale of the project and also plan the timeline for the implementation of the project. And the submission of reports should be within September 31st next year. Talking about the evaluation criteria for the grant, there are 5 criteria that we would consider during the evaluation of the project applications that come in. First would be focus on climate action, adaptation, or mitigation. So projects must help communities or target groups to adapt to a specific climate issue, challenge or hazard specific to the city of Calgary, or mitigate climate change by reducing emissions. So it could be by enhancing carbon sink as well. And community reach and engagement. So the projects must engage targeted groups that are affected by climate change or vulnerable or more vulnerable to the climate change impacts. So we're open for projects that address the whole community or everyone. But if you have a certain target group, or if you're thinking about people who are more vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, then please do specify the targeted audience and write in detail as to how they will engage in the entire of the project. Accessibility projects should be designed to engage and be accessible to either all community members or a targeted group of community members. And there should be a measurable, tangible outputs, as in, like, proposals should have a measurable positive impact in their community. And when you're writing about outputs, please be specific as to numbers, or numbers of activities, numbers numbers of people engaged, a number of physical structures to be installed. So the intervention should have some tangible activities. For example, making DIY HEPA filters, or activity-based educational workshop that hosted 25 people or installed one shade structure in their community park. And lastly, we would focus on the sustainability of the project. The project should be designed sustainably so that it has a prolonged impact in the community. For example, measures of maintenance of shade structure, measures to clean and change the HEPA filters, or videos that could be shared to the wider audience for awareness, etc. So I see that you have raised your hands. So I would, yes, I would request you to please have the question. Yes, go ahead, please.
Right.
Michael?
Yep. Thank you. I just wanted to ask about the accessibility part, about
Mm-hmm.
the project should be designed to engage the community and just sort of more what that looks like. Because would it have to be like a full engagement session, or would it have to be advertised sort of widely? What's the scope for
Yes.
that?
Yes, thank you. So if you, for instance, if you're thinking of installing a shade structure in an area, so that shade structure should be accessible to all the community members. It should not be within the fences of a community association or a private area, right? So it should have good access to everybody or a targeted audience. For instance, if you're thinking of a group home or working with people with disability, and if it is only a certain section of people who will be using it, that's okay as well, as long as it is accessible to them, right? So with accessibility, I would mean that. And also, like for instance, if you're carrying out a training to a group of people and there are a majority of people who speak a certain language, so if you would deliver the training in a language that everybody understands, or if there are seniors who are more vulnerable and they speak a certain language, and delivering training or materials in that language would enhance the accessibility of the project. So that would be some of the examples. Would that be clear?
Thank you so much. That makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Thank you. Anybody else who has any questions so far? Okay, perfect. So if not, then please feel free to raise your hands in between or write questions in the chat, and we will address them towards the end of the session. Moving on. So talking about the grant disbursement, this is small grants, but this is a reimbursement grant unless otherwise agreed upon for organizations applying. But for small community groups, considering accessibility, we will be having 80% of the funds upfront or in installments based on the project activities and timelines. So if you were awarded the grant and if you represent a community organization, community group, then we will come back to you and ask for a breakdown and see if we could work with like release of funds upfront so that it's easier for you to implement the project. For organizations, it is a reimbursement grant. However, there is an opportunity to negotiate, and if there are instances where an upfront grant would be helpful, then we are open to that as well. Applications. So I will be running you through our website and the application. So applications can be submitted online, or you could send a PDF copy. You can download the PDF copy and send it to me in an email as an attachment, including all the other documents that you have to send, like for instance, budget or support letter. And in online application, there is an area where you can upload everything. There is also an option to send a video of your application ideas if that is easier for you. Talking about the budget, there is a budget sheet provided, and if you're comfortable and find it easy to fill out the budget sheet, then very well. However, budget is not a requirement for this grant. If you submit a lump sum of the activities and proposed activities and a tentative budget for each activity, that would work as well. And we will come back to you if you are one of the best applications, then we will come back to you for additional budget. So budget is not compulsory at this point of time. However, if you are within the top 10 best projects, then we will come back to you and ask for a detailed budget. While making budget, I would request you to please refer to any codes or like online portals where you could see a tentative cost of the items so that the budget is more realistic and there are no surprises towards the end when you get the project. Any questions so far? Okay, if there are no questions, then I will move on to our website. And is it visible? You should be seeing the page of the website. If you're seeing the website, could you give me a thumbs up, please? Anybody?
No, it's not up.
Okay, maybe I have to share again. Thank you, Danielle. Okay. Share and how about now? Okay, perfect. So this is the landing page of our website for Climate Ready YYC. This talks a little bit about the grant funding and also talks about our intakes and the types of grants. So Climate Ready YYC has two grants, small grants and large grants. So today we're going to focus more on the small grants, that is from $500 to $5,000. So if you go to the project criteria, this will open up a document that has all the potential projects. That can be project ideas for Climate Ready YYC, details about Climate Ready YYC, and it also has the eligible and the ineligible cost under this grant. So that would be very helpful when you're designing the project and also planning your budget for the project. So it talks about how to apply, and we also have the inspiration toolkit. So these are all the possible projects that can be done under Climate Ready YYC grant, and also gives a detail as to like examples of projects. We also have some past projects that have been funded under this grant in this page, and FAQs if you would have any questions. Besides the FAQs, if you have more questions, then please feel free to send an email to me. I'm here to help anybody who wants to apply for this grant or has any questions regarding this grant, or even if you want to have a small idea that you would want to share, then I'm always here, and I'm also here to co-create the application with you. If you feel like, okay, I will write an application, the grant application, and if you want me to review the applications, or if you want my help to prepare budget, I'm always there. I'm here to co-create the grant application with you. And just note that I'm not in the evaluation committee for the grant. So, okay, if you go to small grants and apply now, this will lead you to the small grants website, which has all the important dates and eligibility criteria. We have project criteria again here. And there is a link to set up a meeting with me. And here, so this is our online form where you can fill out all the details, or you could download the PDF form here and then take your time and do the application offline. For online application form, I'm very sorry, but you'd have to do it in one go, and this will not save any data if you close it in between. I'm sorry about that. But PDF forms are a little bit more friendly that way, that if you start the application, you can save it, keep it for later, or do it when you're offline as well. So for the small grant forms, the information and the details that we ask for are primary contact person. So if you represent community-minded individuals, you would tick here. If you're a registered organization, you would tick here. Share contact details. preferred way to get in touch, and mailing address. Tell us about your group or organization. So you could write about your group if you're 3 or more individuals. What are you passionate about? What are you thinking for this project? And if you're an organization, then we would want to know more about what your organization does, who does your organization work with, the goals of your organization, and what is the name of your project. This is optional. If you've thought about some interesting names, then please feel free to write them here. We always love to read the names of your projects. And what climate issues does your project address? So tick all that apply. If it's extreme heat, wildfire smoke, so whatever it is, please put it on. If you select other, it will give you an opportunity to write that. And how does your project initiative mitigate climate change? If it's any of these, then please tick. If your project is only focused on adaptation, it's okay. You can just simply tick other, and then you can move on to the other section and write not applicable here. What categories best describe your project? If you're thinking about physical structure or resources, nature-based projects like tree plantation or any other nature-based projects like community gardens, education or awareness workshops, events and programs, and other. If it is other sort of activity that you're planning, then please feel free to write here. Tell us about your project. What climate-ready project are you planning? Okay. What climate-ready project are you planning? How will your project support your community to prevent and build resilience to climate change? So please feel free to write about your project, what you're thinking, and we love to hear stories. So I've seen a lot of applications that are very well structured, but lack the touch of engagement and stories. So we would love to hear a background as to why you're proposing this project. And if there are any other activities that you've done in the past and there is a significant impact, then we would love to hear that as well in this section. So when you're talking about your project, please try to reflect on any stories, background that you have for that project. And please upload any drawings, photos, documents. So photos could be any inspiration. For instance, if you're thinking about having a shade structure, then it could be a photo of a similar shade structure that is in some other place that would give us an idea as to what you're trying to do. Tell us about your target audience. What climate vulnerable individuals or groups do you hope will benefit from this project? How will this project engage or include these individuals or groups? So here we're trying to understand what are the target audience or who will be benefiting from your project and how will they be engaged? For instance, if you're thinking about having a training session, will you engage them right from the stage of planning the training? What is the need or requirement for the people for that training? So everything and how accessible these projects are for these people. So that would be the next question. Tell us about the accessibility of your project. How accessible is the project that you have planned to the community or the vulnerable individuals or group? If it is a physical structure, would it be open and accessible to the community or the vulnerable groups? Is it in a public space? If it is an event or workshop, would it be open to all or targeted audience or to participate? Would it be a free to participate event? Would it be a member only event? Would consideration for accessibility in all forms of barriers be considered? So we are trying to ask you how you're considering the needs of the people who you are targeting in this question. And what is the estimated start date of your project? So start date, end date, how long will it take to complete your project? So we're trying to understand the timeline that you're considering for your project. Where will your project take place? So you could add in the location that you have. And if your project requires permits, approvals, or letter of support to use the proposed space, please include these documents. So if you're thinking about a shade structure, then you would want to think about the permits that might be required for the shade structure. How much grant funding are you asking? So we're asking you the budget for the project. And if you have completed a budget template, then please upload it here. So we have the template, and you will find a link to the template up somewhere here. Sorry, I will show it later. And so we would ask you to upload the budget in the template provided. If not, that is okay as well. But we would still request you to have all the list of supplies or activities that you're planning to do and a tentative budget for each of them in this column, if you do not have a detailed budget yet. The other question we ask is, when your project is finished, how will you know that it was a success? So we're trying to understand the outcome or the potential outcome of your proposed project. So it could be like installation of HEPA filters or trainings, or maybe DIY projects that you're thinking, or maybe a climate fair in your community association or in your community, and the number of people that you're thinking will participate and understand about, gain knowledge about climate change. So that sort of outcomes. And what are your plans for ongoing maintenance? So we're trying to understand the sustainability of the project that you're planning. Like, for instance, if you have a training session where you will train maybe 10 youth volunteers, how will these youth volunteers carry on the climate change initiatives in the community? Will they lead other projects, or would they go to maybe some schools where they will deliver all the knowledge that they have gained to small children? So we're trying to understand these aspects of sustainability of your project and future potential of scaling up the project in case in the future. And that brings us to the end of our form. And so this is just a CAPTCHA, and you can submit. So for online form, you would have to do everything at once. And if you go for the PDF, then you can always save and continue later. So I am trying to look for the template for budget. I don't see it now, but we can send it to you via email.
It
Yeah,
should
I
be
don't.
in the other documents. Scroll down.
Okay.
Additional
Oh, here.
resources, budget
Okay.
template.
Yes, yes. So additional resources, thank you, Danielle, has the budget template and inspiration toolkit and small grant guidelines. So small grant guidelines has all the evaluation criteria for small grants in case you'd want to go through them again. And with this, I come to the end of my presentation, and I will stop sharing my screen with an opportunity for you to ask any questions that you would have.
I'm not sure if you can see my chat. This is Whitney from FCJ.
Hi.
I have here, if we buy fans, for example, on water station, and it's not for public use, but other users, meaning charitable, non-for-profit organizations that's being like using our venue, could access this. And because let's say, for example, there's a need, like meaning someone already brought it up, like you don't have any water stations here, we have to come down and try to ask for water, for example, because it's really hot this summer. And how do we put number like usage, like is this usage per year, usage per month, and average? That's my first question.
Okay, thank you for your question. Uses could be per month or per year. It would not matter. It's just subjective, right? So per month, maybe it would be like 30 groups, but in a year, it would be like 360 groups, right? So it would be, it is like relational. So it could be a month or a year. It doesn't matter. Or at any one time. For instance, at any one time when the facility is being used, there will be this many people using it, right?
I have two more questions. I'll just
Yeah,
go
sure.
two questions.
Sure.
And if we're applying for big grant, could we also apply for small grant? The last question is, for example, we bought already 2 water filling stations this month. Are we eligible for reimbursement if we got the grant?
Okay, thank you. So second question, no, you would not be able to apply for both the grants at once. So you could either apply for small grants or large grants, depending upon your need. And the last question, the answer to that question is, sorry,
Reimbursement.
oh yes. So for the grants, any expenditure before the signing of agreement is not eligible. So we would sign the agreement and then move on with expenses. So no, if you've already purchased them, then that would not be eligible. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Thank you. Thank you for the questions, Whitney. And Michael, you have a question. Yes.
Yep. Thank you. I wanted to ask first, I wanted to ask about the, I think earlier in the presentation when you were going through the form that asked about the types of projects, sort of
Yes.
what climate adaptation or mitigation topic it would be about. And there's an option to type in other for both of them. But I was wondering, can we click multiple if it sort of connects a few one or two different ones?
Yes. So if you are thinking about doing both projects like mitigation and adaptation, then you could select multiples. Even within adaptation, if you're thinking about multiple hazards, like for instance, like heat, wildfire smoke, then you could select all of those. If you're thinking about education events, it could cover everything, right? So you can select multiple options, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. And a second question I had, sorry, just very quickly, is
Yeah,
I know that, thank you. I know that Activate YYC also has these small grants, and I was just wondering, because I couldn't find that, is there a session like this for that grant as well? It's okay if you don't know.
So I don't think Activate YYC has an information sharing session as such. However, so Adam, who is the lead of Activate YYC, you are able to contact him and have any questions. So there is an option to book a meeting with Adam.
Thank you so
And
much.
if you do not have a link for Adam, you could always send me a request and I will try to connect you with Adam. So yes, there will be an opportunity where you can go through and share your ideas with Adam before you apply for the grant. And one more thing, thank you for this question. But that reminds me, so Climate Ready YYC is not a grant that requires a match. However, this is a grant that is open to match. So if you're thinking about project, like for instance, if it is a 20,000 project and you already have 10,000 in funding, then Activate could be a matching fund. Or if you're thinking about 20,000 and Activate could be 5,000 and 15,000 could be some other grants. So we're open to that. Any other questions, Michael?
I don't think so.
Okay,
Thank
perfect. Thank you so much. Any other questions from the participants? Oh, and Danielle put in Adam's contact in the chat. So just in case you're interested, you could take his email as well.
Thank you.
Hi, Whitney again. Well, you were mentioning
Yes.
earlier that we could do like matching. Is there like we need to put it in the application, or like where in the part in the application we have to indicate that?
Yes. So I will just open the budget template very quickly to show how it looks like. And that might be helpful for everybody. Just give me a moment here. I'm trying to share my screen. So, this is the budget template developed for Climate Ready YYC. Is it visible? Hopefully, yes. Okay, perfect.
Yes.
So, okay, thank you. Thank you, Danielle. So we request for a description of activity. That would be the project activity. Unit would be any unit that you have, and quantity would be the number. Unit cost per number. For instance, if you're doing a workshop, it would be food, person days. So 20 people, cost per unit, $25, and this would be the total cost. So as a match, this column requests you to insert the part of amount covered by Climate Ready YYC in case of grant stacking. So if out of 500, if you're thinking of 50% for Climate Ready, you would use this section where you would pull out the amount that you're going to request from Climate Ready YYC, and that would give the total cost under total cost of the project and total cost under Climate Ready YYC. And here is the section where you can mention about the other grants. For instance, if you're thinking about having $1,000 from Climate Ready YYC, you would select proposal submitted and other grants would come here. And you could also write approved, or if you've just submitted the proposals, just write submitted the proposal or ongoing, just the status of the grant. Would that answer your question, Whitney?
Yes, thank you so much.
Perfect. And if you have any more questions on the budget sheet while am still displaying it, if not,